Well, I'd love to review both teams, but I'd actually say that's a valuable point away for Arsenal there. They battled, they played against the Liverpool side who were clearly up for it, and in a similar way to the way they were up for it against Manchester United, and the way they were up for it against so many other teams this season. But ultimately, I think Arsenal's goal lived a bit more of a charmed life than Liverpool's, and Arsenal were on the break. It was Mikel Arteta playing a more conservative game, and I've got to credit him for that, because I think he was trying to calm the players. He was trying to make it more of a game where Arsenal could actually win it, instead of just a punch for punch sort of, hey, we'll go with Liverpool here. And when Liverpool sucked them into it, there were times where I've got to admit, I think Arsenal got sucked into the game, and they didn't need to really, because every time they went forward against Liverpool, they were much more clinical than Liverpool were, I'll put it that way. So that was frustrating, obviously, from my perspective as a Liverpool fan, but from an Arsenal perspective, obviously, you'll think of it as 2 points dropped. The real one here is, I think it's actually 1 point gained. And I think that's the reality for Arsenal this season, all right? The real thing for Arsenal was today, I think their midfield was far superior to Liverpool. I think their back line looked quite gettable. But actually, the front line, they didn't really play into what Arsenal needed to do, which was get beyond Virgil van Dijk, which was get beyond your Canate types. And if I was Arteta, I'd be a little bit frustrated with the team today, because I think Arteta kind of played into Jurgen Klopp's hands, I'll put it that way. And I know that's probably frustrating to hear as an Arsenal fan. You've dropped 2 points and you want a bit of a post-mortem here, but you're not dead. You played really well. You cut Liverpool apart multiple times, and even on the counter-attack, Liverpool had to play at their very best in order to match Arsenal. So I don't actually think it was an awful game for Arsenal in that sense. Where I did think they played particularly well was the base in midfield. I thought Odegaard also wandered around really well. He didn't get many touches on the ball as in normal games, and I wasn't able to run it because of Fabinho and Henderson basically getting into everyone. But again, it was another one of those performances from Liverpool where they deserve a bit of credit for how they played Arsenal, and Arsenal deserve a bit of credit for how they chose to play Liverpool. It's actually much braver to go to Anfield and play this much more balanced game than it is to go, well, let's just see what we get here. It's kind of a performance you want to see from someone who's going for a championship, rather than just going and coming at Liverpool. Now, some of you might disagree with that. You might say Liverpool are there for the taking. They're a really poor team at the moment. But there are other sides who've decided to try and play Liverpool and been completely taken apart. And actually, when Arsenal were, I want to say less conservative, maybe a bit more attacking, the reality is that Liverpool got quite a few counter-attacks. They got themselves into decent positions, and it made Arsenal look nervous. Now, I'm not saying that's their overall demeanour in the title race, because actually I think Arsenal controlled the game quite passively off the ball, rather than being on the ball and controlling the passages of play. But for me, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd feel a little bit like this was our biggest opportunity so far to beat Liverpool. We beat them back at the Emirates. Now is the time to be playing them at Anfield, because they're so low on confidence. We will think of it, I think, as if Arsenal don't go and take the title, which I hope they do, but I think we'll see, as 2 points dropped. Now, that puts a lot more pressure on Arsenal going forward. I think Arsenal are more than capable of dealing with it, but the real issue for them is they still have to go to the Emirates. They still have to go to Newcastle. And these teams will have seen, we can suck them into a game. We can suck them into playing back and forth here. Newcastle will see that. City will definitely know that, though. I think that'll be a much more cagier affair than this. And I've got to admit, even though I'd love to credit Liverpool in this, and I think they did play much better, the way that Arsenal played them did play into their hands a little bit. So I'll be interested to see where they go from here. I'm going to head back inside and then I'll pick up this review. But ultimately, I think Arsenal should be quite happy with that. If they're not, well, you can't win every game, would be the reality of this, I think. You will win a majority, and I know in the title run, obviously you want to get a majority of the points. The real issue is you can't do that in every game. Now, I actually felt that Mo Salah didn't, he was quite isolated today. I thought Arsenal did that quite well. They tried to isolate Hakpo as well. They tried to isolate each of the front line. I think they listened to Mikel Arteta's instructions overall really well. Liverpool also had multiple different counter-attacks. They played them better than they did at the Emirates. They were much more confident, and I think that probably Jurgen Klopp said to Liverpool, listen, we were hard done by at the Emirates. No matter how you guys feel about it, the players will buy into that, and we should go out there and try and play them as equals rather than as feeling we're less. And that's where Liverpool's confidence came from. Now, you might disagree. You might have watched it at home and think there was much more of a balanced game here. I personally don't disagree. I do think it was balanced, but I also think there was an issue with how Mikel Arteta chose to play the game today. here's my other thing, right? I don't get why, and it's easy to sit here and criticise Arsenal after a draw. I don't really get why they didn't play more offensively in the second half. I think maybe they sat back a bit too much on the 2-1. They came out very fast in the second half. And they should have capitalised on that. And Liverpool had the penalty. There will be Liverpool fans basically saying at this point, well, we should have had a 3-2 here. We should have basically been winning the game rather than drawing the game. But it took a cavalry to come on. It took Liverpool changing the game. I think Arsenal didn't really adapt to Liverpool's changes quick enough. And that probably is on Mikel Arteta. There have been a couple of times where he's sort of struggled in a couple of games to adapt tactically to a couple of managers. But with that, there are going to be games when that happens and the players need to dig in, and they sort of did that today. Granit Xhaka had a very combative game. I actually think one thing Arsenal did very well was play the pace of the game very well. They paced it almost perfectly against the Liverpool side who were looking to play high pace. Arsenal went down a lot. They did all the necessary things to win the game, apart from obviously score the goals and defend it the other way, but you get my point. And then I'm struggling not to give Liverpool credit in this video because I've just obviously been at Anfield, but I think there are going to be a lot of people out there who go, Anfield's an easy place to go, you should be beating Liverpool this season. That was probably one of the best atmospheres we've seen at Anfield this season. Very emotional day because of the tribute to the 97 so close to April the 15th. And I think that also contributed to this. It was also, Arsenal went out there early on and basically every time they walked through Liverpool's defence, they scored. Liverpool had a majority of the possession, but that doesn't mean they were controlling the game particularly well. And actually, when Arsenal did put their two best chances forward in the first half, they scored them both. And part of me wonders whether they did basically go, hey, this is too easy. We're going to walk through these guys here, took their foot off the gas a little bit. And maybe Arsenal fans should be looking at that, especially going into games against City, going into games against Newcastle. These are notes that when the team are still going forward, encourage them to keep stepping on that, lean into the killer instinct rather than away from that killer instinct, and don't let up on a side who's clearly weak. If City look weak in one of the big games, if Newcastle look weak in one of the big games, don't go, well, we're 2-0 up, let's see what happens, because the memories of this kind of game will come back. Now, I know I've been very positive about Arsenal this season. I don't struggle to be positive about them, but I said there'll be a lot of games that they control with their 2-2-6. This was one of the games where they were a bit more of a balanced formation, and with that balance, I think you should appreciate that as fans, but what I'm saying is, with that balance, it brought Liverpool back into the game, really, and I don't get why they weren't more offensive. Liverpool had a few mistakes early on. They did have a lot of overloads. There was plenty of space. I also don't think Arsenal took their opportunities. There was a few counter-attacks late on where I'm like, where is the support for Saka? Where is the support for insert Matt Martinelli or whoever it is that's running out there? So I guess that's frustrating from a perspective if we're looking from an Arsenal perspective. Liverpool were on the brink today. Mo Salah obviously missed the penalty. I've not seen whether it was a penalty or not. Obviously, I've not seen VAR. I'd be interested to see Mikel Arteta's post-game notes. I do wonder whether the mentality of thinking can we go away into Anfield, can we win it, did get to Arsenal a little bit today. This is not necessarily a criticism. It's just much more of a, why didn't they win would be my question. And partly is because Liverpool were good quality and deserved the draw today. If anything, I actually think they deserved either side. I think Liverpool were the better side today. Arsenal played it very even-handedly. They played it with a huge degree of balance, and Liverpool made a lot of mistakes. But I actually think Liverpool played the better game than Arsenal. And being in the stadium, that was how the fans read it as well. So we'll see whether that's reflected on TV. I wonder whether you guys agree with me. Inside the stadium, a lot of the fans were getting behind them. They're quite quiet in the first half, quite nervous. And Arsenal let them get back into the game. They will be quite disappointed with that. I think there are notes to take from this which can actually be really positive. How they went forward, how they found that space, how they moved Liverpool around in the first half, how they did all of that. It's not necessarily a criticism. I think Arsenal will reflect on this and actually they'll go forward stronger. The real thing is obviously they wanted to keep it at 8 points. It goes back to 6, giving City the chance to close the gap even more. Here's the thing. I think they were always going to do that. I think there were going to be trips from both teams. And I'd rather trip up against a Liverpool than I would against anyone else in this Arsenal run-in. I wouldn't want to trip up at City in the same way. Good notes for that fixture, all those kind of things. So I think Mikel Arteta will treat this as positive, and Arsenal as a fan base should treat this as positive. But there's a few blueprints there as to how to play them and how to get in against them and where to stand and what, where the width is. I think at times they looked a little bit dazed. I'll be interested to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. And I hope you guys enjoyed the game as much as I did, because I was obviously emotional day today at Anfield, but it was a good game. And I've not seen a good Liverpool game live in a little while. So like I said, let me know in the comments below. Plenty of good performances from Arsenal. Just a few mistakes. See you guys in a little while. Bye.